A really special guest, Warner from Height, is here with us today, and he's going to be talking about value-based businesses beats strategy. So if you haven't heard of Height, they were the recipients of an award through Auckland Chambers for strategy. They're really great at this, and I went and saw Warner present, and Warner present, and what I loved about what he talked about was a lot about whānau. It was a lot about like caring for the people that you work for, but also a lot about being organized and disciplined. And I think that we can all use that in our business. And so I'm really looking forward to hearing all about it. Now, this is a Q&A session, and we are streaming live on a number of platforms. As usual, you can engage with this session by using the comment feature, the chat function, or the Q&A function, depending on what platform you're streaming with us. Please ask questions. These sessions can be just for you, and that's why we have them. We want to help you grow your business. So take advantage of these experts that come on, like our mate here from Height. So welcome.
Kia ora.
Second start, I love it. I was like, oh, he's here, and then he dropped off, and then I was like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, cool. So no mai haere mai whānau, ko wana takowenga, ko Ngāti Pou tako iwi. Just to acknowledge the room, ina iwi, ina rangatia, i ngā rangatahi, no mai haere mai, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. So thank you for having me.
It is honestly my pleasure. I was really glad that you agreed to do this session, and because I know how much value it's going to bring to all of our digital boosters. So welcome to Digital Boost. And as usual, I'm going to drop off now and let you kind of drive, and I'll be in the background facilitating all the questions and comments. So do ask your questions here for Warner. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Okay, everybody. I'm just going to share some slides with you. So what I'm going to do is really just premise around what we do as a business. So we're a technical tendering and procurement consultancy. We've been running 8.5 years. I'm the founder with my wife, Liz. We started the business in a garage, with a 2-year-old and a 2-month-year-old. So in a time which is everyone would say you try and look for the perfect time to start a business, and that's when we started it. Initially, what we'd started to do was outsource construction project management. My background's in construction project management, and we've evolved and we've become really focused around a couple of things. Basically, we help government agencies procure large pieces of engineering infrastructure like roads, water, and rail. And on the flip side, we also help suppliers pitch and win government contracts, and we work across both New Zealand and Australia. And in fact, today we've just been approached by a US business to support them pitching some work in the Pacific as well. One of the really interesting things is our DNA is in engineering, construction, but actually our team is super diverse. And I love this photo I'm sharing with you now. This is us winning the Westpac Business Awards a couple of years ago for strategy and planning. And what's really interesting about this photo is there's only 3 engineers in that photo, and the rest all come from different backgrounds. One comes from creative arts background, where people have arts degrees, geographers, lawyers, and all sorts of different people. And I think when we start to look at running a great business, we look at the power of what diversity can bring and how we can work in a technical environment and create something that's really amazing around that. And it's been our real competitive advantage for us. So I want to share a little bit about how we've done that as a business, but also how we've had to use our digital thinking around how do we create great products, and how do we create a business that has a lot of non-technical people working in it, and how do we support them in a way that they produce great results for our customers, but also they have a really efficient and less aggravated approach to the way they deliver services for us. So it all starts when we talk about strategy, is really understanding where you sit. And as I mentioned before, what we do is help government agencies buy pieces of infrastructure. We also help clients pitch and win. So when we start to look at things, we've got a couple of things that are really important for us is actually our core purpose. And this is an internal thing we use to articulate what we're about, where we focus. And what we talk about is building relationships and creating mana. And because we in essence, we work in an environment where we bring two parties together to design and construct large pieces of infrastructure. It's about bringing those two parties together to create a great relationship between the two of them. So a lot of contractual relationships fall over because there's poor culture and misunderstanding and misalignment. And we talk about creating mana. So what is mana? It's about creating something that's better and bigger than yourself. And when we think about the built environment, in particular construction, it's really around what positive influence can we have outside the building of the physical asset. So how can we improve the environment we're working in? How can we create jobs and opportunities for communities? How can we do something targeted around Māori and Pacifica businesses? So that's kind of like when we think about our core purpose and when our team starts to work on projects, this is what we focus on. Our mission is around how do we democratize procurement? What do I mean by that? Government procurement and tendering is by nature complex and really, really tricky. So how do we get to the point where people start to transaction can create opportunities for smaller business to participate in this opportunity? I'll give you a really good example. We work with one of our clients, and this links with our core purpose as well, to look at a number of construction projects as a result of COVID-19. They got some funding from government. And when we started to really look at the opportunities for their spend, we realized there were a number of small suppliers that actually could do the work directly for them. So we went and developed a procurement model that allowed to engage them direct and not have to go through a tender process. So again, we're trying to create opportunities and allow everyone to participate in the opportunity. And our vision is to be Australia's leading technical tendering and procurement specialist. So by setting the vision and the core purpose and our mission really clearly, we can start to build a business underneath us. And this is quite critical for us when we start to look at how do we implement digital and how do we think about trying to make our business as better as it can. Okay, that's great whakatauki. A whakatauki is a saying, I ora e te tuatara ka patu ke waho, a problem is solved by continuing to find solutions. So this is the heart and essence of our business, is that we are here to resolve the problems of our clients. So we spend a lot of time trying to define the problems. So that's really critical for us as a consultancy. Now, as a team, we've grown. We're nearly 23 people now across predominantly here in Auckland. But we have team members in Australia as well, and we've got a small satellite office in Brisbane, which we haven't been to for a little while, obviously with COVID, and we do a lot of work across the whole of Aotearoa as well and into the Pacific. So we've really focused on solving those problems. So not only is it important to have a clear mission, a clear purpose, what really underpins what we do as a business is around our values. And it's easy to talk about values, but it's really hard to implement them and make them one thing. So we talk about delivery. And what we say is, we kind of joke, I'm not trying to say anything too bad here. We talk about doing good shit. You know, actually, it's really important that we do good stuff all the time. So it's really about how do we support not only our customers, but if you're part of a team, you make sure you deliver to your colleague as well. We talk about one team, and what does that mean? We have a real strict no dickheads policy within our business, and this extends to our customers as well. How do we work together really collaboratively as a team? Integrity and trust. So clients have to trust us implicitly around what we do. It's really critical for us. And agility, and we call this challenging the norm. The fact that we work across multiple different types of sectors and we work internationally allows us to really challenge the things that we do. But the question is, how do we bring values alive? And I think this is a real critical thing for businesses, and particularly small businesses like ours. And at the heart of it is, how do we bring this to life? We do this a couple of ways. Each morning we have a thing called a morning huddle, where we get together and we share what we did last 24, next 24, and stucks. What is a stuck? Well, stuck is a really interesting thing. It's about where we're uncertain or afraid. And this is really critical because what we're trying to do is create an environment where our peers and our team can feel vulnerable with each other about not knowing what's going to happen next. And the best way we can do this is for the leaders of the business to be the first to be vulnerable, the first to be afraid and uncertain. So it's one of the things we do. The other thing is that we tell value stories. We're a stories-driven business. So each Tuesday we spend about, which is our team meeting, we spend about 15 minutes telling a values-based story. And then what it does is it tries to bring to life how we've applied our values, good and bad stories over the last week or something that may have come up. So those are two things that we do around values. The third and most important thing is being accountable to our values and holding people to account. So as leaders in our business, it's really critical that as us, we demonstrate these values and we display them all the time. But if we see team members that wander off, that we hold them to account. So this is really critical. Having these values in place is the bedrock of why we've been successful as a business. The other thing, and when we talk about strategy, is really understanding what your economic engine is. And we talk about, this is the Hedgehog concept. This is done by the author of Good to Great, what's his name, Jim Collins. Great book. If you haven't read it, it's a really fantastic book. But it's really been clear around what our BHAG is, our big, hairy, audacious goal. In this case here, it's really how do we help 10,000 SMEs participate in the opportunity? What is the opportunity? Well, it's really critical for us. So it's talking about the government procurement sector. And we can influence it in a couple of ways, through the businesses that we help support win contracts, or through the way we might design a procurement for a large piece of infrastructure. And then it starts to look at three pieces of that puzzle. What are we massively passionate about? Well, our core purpose, that's really important for us. Why is passion important in business? Well, this is things that get you out of bed, that gets you excited about what you do. It gives importance to the activities you do. That's really critical for us. And what can we be world-class at? And it's really interesting because we work with engineers and we work with bureaucrats. And actually what we do is the products and services we create is around bringing love and empathy. And it sounds a little bit weak and wishy-washy to talk about that. But the biggest challenge in most engineering-related or construction-related projects is never the technical, it's always the relationship. So how do we bring empathy and compassion into those relationships such that people are working cohesively? And then what are our critical numbers? So how do we maximize profit? So if we are passionate about something, we're world class, we've got a hobby, but actually how do we turn it into a business? And that's really critical. So that's around things like NPS. So if we get our Net Promoter Score right, so we're really diligent around focus on that. So Net Promoter Score is a measure of customer advocacy. So if we get it over 70, which is world class, that goes from 100 to minus 100, good things happen to us. We get lots of repeat business. The customers are really happy. We get great referrals, really critical. And then it's around our staff project utilization. So making sure we get maximized profit around that. So that's really, really critical around us driving great outcomes. So just some examples of the things we've been working on, and these are just a small section of the things that we're massively passionate about. So we're doing a lot of work now with Māori and Pacifica businesses in terms of pitching and helping them win government contracts, and how do we implement a concept called social procurement. And again, what we're trying to do now in terms of this is start to articulate the products and services that we have in place. Okay, one of the really critical things when we come back to strategy is what do we focus on? So here's our what we call our strategic objectives. So we spend every quarter as a team coming together, and this is our leadership team, to really review our annual plan. And each year what we do is we reset our annual plan to start to look at what our business looks like in 5 years. So this is really important because this starts to really define, particularly in our digital spaces, what we're going to focus on. So our 5-year rocks, and these are the things that we really start to look at is around people and culture. And it's how do we build, grow, and retain A players. So our most important thing we have as a business is our people. That is our fuel, that is our oxygen that drives us forward. The other thing is, and I think as you grow as a business, is you can get complex. And particularly in professional services businesses where you have really, really smart people, what happens is that you tend to try and create a whole lot of things. And so what we're trying to do is standardize and uncomplicate. Actually, what we're trying to do is, rather than broaden our service offering, is to make it deeper and narrower. We're trying to really, really own a space. And I think this is indicative of our journey. We started off as outsourced construction project management, and now we just do two things. We just help organizations pitch and win great contracts, and we help government agencies procurement. That's our real sweet spot. That's not saying we don't do anything else, but it's about making sure we do that, standardize and uncomplicate. Why is that important? So as we grow, we can start to train people, we can start to create products that fit around that. The third bullet point is that customer experience. It has to be industry-leading, industry-beating service. It's really critical. It's really important for us. And then the fourth bullet point is really interesting for us in terms of digital space, is how do we create resilient and recurring revenue? So for us, it's around two things. One is how do we diversify our customer base? So we've got a great diversity of customers within New Zealand, a mixture of public and private sector clients, and we have some private sector clients in Australia and a couple within in the wider Pacific Rim. But for us, if we want to have true resilience in our customer base, how do we look at things like growing our presence in Australia? How do we be very deliberate around that? And then how do we look at things like recurring revenue? So if we look at digital, which is a great example of a recurring revenue model, how do we utilize that to create some subscription-based models? So the challenge for us as a professional services business is that we sell time. And how do we move away from selling time to selling something that's more subscription-based that creates that recurring revenue? Okay, so now you've got a bit of a sort of a premise around how we have come together around our strategic rocks, and it is Amari said, is that we've been really successful in this. It's been really critical for us. And even during COVID environment, our revenue dropped, but our margins maintained. And we're having a really good year this year, believe it or not. Okay, let's talk about our digital journey. Like, as I said, we started in a garage in Sandringham 8.5 years ago, and just me and my wife. And I'm really embarrassed to say that our digital journey was Excel. And I'm an engineer. So I'm really smart, so I can manipulate any Excel spreadsheets, put macros in it, and create multiple worksheets that all connect together. But as we grew and as we became more complex, we've evolved our journey. We've moved away from Excel, and we started to look at some other things that support us as a business. And this is our second stage. We're in our third stage at the moment. So we started to look at things like LinkedIn. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the importance of LinkedIn for us as a business in terms of the digital marketing space. But we use that very much. How do we drive and manage our community? We started to obviously look at Xero in terms of managing our financial situation, Workflow Max in terms of job management, quoting, management, staff productivity. We use Get Feedback as a tool for us to drive our NPS, Dropbox to manage our files and structure, Pipedrive to manage Seek to manage recruitment, Squarespace to manage our website. When we made that transition from Excel to these types of tools, and it actually happened quickly, to be fair, what we found is, yes, this worked well when we were a small business. These are tools. But the real challenge for us is they're not connected. How do we take a continuous solution for the client around the time we engage with them through to the time that we deliver a product through to the time we offload them and get some feedback? So this is very much where we're at the moment. So this is our third stage. And I think what's really interesting about this for us is how do we plot this out, and how do we take the whole customer experience from that initial awareness through to consideration, purchase, decision, delivery to completion. And we started plotting this out, and this is the early work we did. And this is quite closely linked to our lean journey. So if anyone's not done the course at the university, it's free through Callaghan, I would strongly recommend you start to look at this, because it starts to drive some interesting thinking around how do you connect all these things in this place. If I give you an example, if we look at our use of Pipedrive, which is our CRM system, we manage opportunities in there. And what happens if we win an opportunity and we've got to manually load that into Workflow Max? That's an example where we've got some manual intervention. So we're trying to create this thing to be absolutely seamless. It also got us thinking around our products and service. And in particular for a professional services business, is how do we connect all our products into a program? So this is our bid business. This is how we help organizations win large contracts. So if we start to look at our service offering, it's how do we connect things together? So how this basically works is we look at things like intelligence. We help our clients understand the market and identify where they should play. Then it moves to pre-positioning. How do we help our clients build a great relationship with a client before the tender comes to market? A little bit of research around that. We know that those organizations that have good relationships with organizations or individuals within those organizations before tender are far more successful in winning those tenders than those who do not. And then the tender process itself. How do we help our clients produce great tenders and get them prepared for that? The fourth one is how do we help them mobilize onto the job, contractually mobilized. That's a whole lot of compliance-based document. And then how do we help them deliver, which is actually a small part of what we do. But what's really important about understanding your business in terms of the process or the system you create is actually how do the products and services fit within that? And then going back to that customer journey is how do we make those seamless? And so this is part of the piece of work we've been doing is really around understanding what is important for us and how do we articulate it and how do we hold it all together. So where do we go through from strategy? So this is some piece of work we really started to look at. So if you remember, one of our core strategy things was about how do we uncomplicate, simplify, how do we create great customer experience? So this is our digital strategy, and this is the things that we start to look at. So this is our focus area. So how do we decrease waste and the non-billable work? So how do we get super efficient around making sure that we are not having all these manual interventions with movement from one system to the next? How do we reduce those staff pain points? So those things that really frustrate our team, that we want to retain great people, but as we grow as a business, what happens is if we've got systems that are disconnected or not working well together, then what happens is that people forget and we create a situation in which mistakes fall in there. We might put a wrong billing rate in there, or we might not forget this or whatever. So how can we reduce those pain points? How can we increase current value for customers and client facing work? Really, really important. And then the fourth bullet point is accommodate company growth and facilitate scaling the business. That's really critical for us. As we grow, we get more complicated. More people equals more complications. So how do we simplify that? And then the fifth bullet point, really interesting for us, is pursue revenue from digital products. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the digital products we've created as a professional services business and the experiences we've created. And in particular, our awareness around who is our customer. So it's really critical to that discussion. So let's talk a little bit about this in practice. So here's the strategy, but here's how we implement it. So what we've spent a lot of time on, and it's just very, very recent, is actually documenting out all the activities within our business. And I think, as a relatively simple professional services business, I think we've got about 318 different activities, right from generating a quote in Workflow Max through to drafting up notes from a workshop. So there's a whole lot of myriad of things. And what we did with that was we started to look at what those activities were, and this is what you can see here, and then understand with this as a business what we're going to do with them. But really importantly, we started to look at actually what amount of time we'll be spending on things. And we can start to see where the time is, particularly your non-productive time is, and where the opportunity may sit. So let me give you a really good example. So once we started to do this, when used intuitively, we used to have a weekly report, which our office manager would put together, would give us our key numbers. And what's really interesting about that is that she would trawl through Workflow Max and Pipedrive and all these sort of different tools that we had to put this report together. It would take her about half an hour, and we kind of looked at it and we went, wow, we really would be great to have that on a real-time basis. And this is what we created, and this is the use of things like Power BI. And I think what we're seeing here is a real dashboard that allows us to give the health check of our business quite quickly. So again, what's critical about this as a business is that we know our key numbers. We know what keeps our business a lot, what we really need to focus on. So there's 4 key numbers in our business that's quite critical. One is around Net Promoter Score. So as we mentioned before, if we create a great customer experience, we get better recurring revenue model. So that's really critical for us. It's about billable time, making sure we're on top of our billable time. So in terms of our bottom line, it's about gross profit per project. So we're aiming for 50%, in this case here was 60%. A little bit lagged in CRM. So we had 3 strategic meetings with our clients that particular time that week, and we hadn't done them. This is in the COVID lockdown, just cusping on COVID, so we're a little bit all over the show. I think what we're seeing here is how do we bring information that's quite disparate within our business and bring it alive such that we have access to this information on a real live basis. So this is really critical for us. So now we've got this great piece of information, this great piece of data. It's about how do we utilize it. And the cool thing is it's live all the time now. So we're not waiting for that Tuesday meeting, and all the managers have access to this. The other thing we can start to do is once we use the likes of Power BI, which is this tool we've used to bring all this information together, is that we've got access to this on our phone. So my dream as a business owner has always been to be able to sit on the beach and monitor my business on my phone. I'm a bit of a workaholic. I like my business. I think that's a bit of a dream. I like to get involved in things. I see that being a dream. Whether that's reality or that's a different story. The other thing I think is really important, and I think one of the challenges, particularly for small businesses, is looking at your pipeline and seeing your revenue projections. So this is a piece of work we've done. So we use Pipedrive as our CRM tool, but what we can do here is start to overlay our budget for the year and start to see whether our sales pipeline is keeping track on this. And the great thing about things like Pipedrive is that it's all probability statistically adjusted so that you can actually project out what it is that you're doing. So again, the use of the tools and how we present the information back. The real critical thing with this is the discipline of maintaining the data as well. So maintaining things like Pipedrive is a real critical part. So within our business, we have those discipline points. So we have sales meetings every week, and we're a small business, but we take an hour and a half every week to talk about sales and talking about following up leads and managing accounts, really critical. So not only are we talking about a systems approach to this, but if we don't use the tools correctly and have those disciplines in our business, then we will struggle. Okay, and we also talk about, you saw our strategy in terms of what we're going to focus on, but actually what we've done is this year is actually appoint a product manager to help us really look at digital. And actually at the moment, even for a small business, and we're definitely not a development company. We're a bunch of engineers with some artistic and all types of people, but we're actually going to take our own developer on this year. It's part of the thing we're going to do. But what we're looking at here is starting to understand how we're going to implement digital thinking and lean as a coordinated effort across our business. So as you can see here, here's an initiatives we're putting in place. So we're communicating with our team about what is going on in the digital space. So one of the critical things that we're going to look at is how do we create a single source of truth? So we're moving from a Dropbox, Outlook type environment to an integrated Teams environment on MS Teams that's going to have Teamwork as our resource management tool and time sheeting. So we're starting to reduce the number of digital tools that we're using and looking at ways of integrating that. And now our digital managers are really starting to look at how we get those efficiencies. So we're not got that manual handling. So why that's important is you need to start communicating. We found that actually the easy thing is to implement the technology. The critical thing is around how do we support our team to take on those tools and manage that change process. Because we have people from varying levels. We've got people that are, straight out of university, super smart, can pick the stuff up like super quick, to those who are probably on the more mature stage and struggling with that. So that cultural change piece is quite critical around that. Okay, let's just talk about digital products. So this is something we did this year. This is our first foray into to really trying to understand what the opportunity set for us in terms of digital products. So we've treated it very much as a learning experience around how do we do that. And we've created 2 products just for our own, own experience. And this is what we call the BD Health Check. So this is a tool that we use to triage a business to see what work they might need to do in terms of being tender ready and in terms of being able to win a contract. And we ask a number of questions to do that. So what we've got here is it's an online survey. We take that data and we run some sort of algorithms, I suppose you could call it AI, to do an assessment on their capability score and then work out where they need to work and what are the key action areas around this. Now, this is really critical for us because what it does is it does 2 things. One is it allows us to do on a new customer to a base assessment on how they're performing. And then define maybe where we're going to support them in terms of scope of works. And secondly, what it also does is allows us to track improvements to show a return on investment. So we might start with a client in 6 months, do an initial assessment, and then we might do an assessment after another 6 months. And then we can see the difference. So it's really critical for us to be able to articulate a return on investment for our clients. The second thing we've been looking at is how do we quantify social and sustainable outcomes? And this is a tool we've been using and developing and looking at procurement around job generation and so forth to this. And we call it the social abacus. It's something we're working on. I think for us, what's been really interesting is we, as an organization that works very much B2B, that the development of products is a real challenge for us because we're not going to get that mass consumer base engagement. So we're not creating something that which everyone can jump onto. It's very defined, very unique. So it's something we've learned around how do we market and who our base customer is and what is the true market value. So we're not going to get rich off our digital products. We're actually probably looking at using them more internally to support our customers make great decisions. Okay, let's talk a little bit about marketing and engaging with our community. And this is something that I was completely naive. So as I said, I'm an engineer, so I just assumed marketing and sales were the same thing, but actually they're completely different. I've learned the hard way. So we've got a very simplistic way of dealing with marketing, and hopefully this might add some value to this discussion. But what was really critical for us is defining our core customer. And this is actually an exercise we run with some of our customers, and this is a great question to ask yourself, is who's the customer that's likely to buy your product or service, and the quantity required for optimal profit. So where do you get the best recurring revenue from? Where do you get the highest profitability? And what are the clients we like to work with? So this is a question we asked ourselves, and we spent some time on it. And what's really interesting and unique for us is once we defined this, we were really able to target our marketing approach. So for us, we tend to work with large construction-based clients, the Downers, the Fulton Hogans, the Fletchers, those types of organizations. And we probably work with 5 or 6 people within those organizations. And we tend to work with large government agencies that have large pieces of infrastructure like KiwiRail, NZTA, Auckland Transport, Auckland Council, those types of organizations. So our customer base is quite narrow and it's quite conservative. The reality is there's probably in New Zealand only about 300 or 400 people that would buy our product. So it's quite niche. It's generally pretty conservative. It's engineers, it's bureaucrats. So it really starts to define for us, how do we market? And I think what's really important is digital is a component of that actually for us, what we've realized is it's really, really critical for us to be doing a lot of face-to-face and actually building trusted relationships with our clients all the time. The other thing we're marketing to the whole time when we think about marketing is potential employees. So our presence around how we promote ourselves is really critical. So here's our marketing plan. I think what's really critical about this is it's pretty simple. So at the moment, I think we've got 1,905 followers. I think we've got 258 engagements the last 30 days. And our digital marketing approach is really focused around 2 things. One is around LinkedIn, and our community management is around LinkedIn as well. And our aspiration and goal is to grow 3,400 LinkedIn followers by April 2022. And our key lead metric on how we do it is have 1 LinkedIn post per week. And we've found for us, optimal time to post is about 9 o'clock on the Thursday. And actually what we're trying to do is build a brand outside of the leaders within the business, i.e. me and some of our team here, that we're actually trying to build the brand around height. So the other thing we do is a lot around our direct marketing. So how do we look at keynote speaking? So, a lot of people will use, we will use keynote speaking as an opportunity for us to talk about what we're doing and get people to come and see and experience some of the stuff we do digitally, noting that our core customer is pretty conservative, engineering, bureaucracy type people. And in public relationships, what are we doing? So we're doing a lot of things around awards. Great thing about awards, if you can do them, is to make them joint. So a lot of the awards we've won in the past being joint with our customers, we've given them the mana as well. Really critical. So if you're doing awards, work out a way in which you can bring your customer along for that. And we look at things around national media. So, what can we be a spokesperson for around things that are topical that we care about? So, for example, we're really passionate about Māori and Pacifica business at the moment. It's something we're really working hard on. So we're finding now that the likes of the Herald or Stuff or even Radio New Zealand will come to us to get comments. So we now build up that reputation. And then we have an open source policy. So we give away a lot of things. So we've written a number of frameworks and so forth like that. So don't be afraid to give away stuff. In terms of LinkedIn, what we found really beneficial is making sure we have a really structured approach around our posts. So we're really thinking about our posts and actually what we're trying to do and what we're trying to communicate. And I'll show you some examples of the posts that we've got. But linking those back to what our core purpose is, our mission and our vision for our businesses, what our values are, what's important to us. And we're not really trying to sell. We're trying to share experiences. We're trying to uplift the causes that we think are important. So at the moment, we've got a massive shift around personal wellness within a business. And so we've gone, and I'll talk a little bit about that now. So here's 2 posts we've just done recently. One is around our approach to wellness. So we've got everyone down to 4.5 days a week on level 3 and 4, full pay. So that's trying to promote that as a business, this is what it's really important for us, is to look after ourselves, but we're also using this as a means to communicate to our customers outside our normal channels, is that we might have to be a little bit more flexible in this lockdown if we're working with you. So that's really, really critical. So you'll note with our post, you can't see the words, but one of our office managers uses Canva to create a simple image that brings everyone in, and we use a lot of hashtags as well. So again, we're getting more and more sophisticated. Well, not sophisticated is not the word. More and more focused around how we put our posts together. And again, the second one here, and this is a piece of public speaking we did for Amultai, which is a Māori Pacific Trades collective, which we do a lot of work with. And again, what we've done is we've referenced them. We've actually brought them into the post so they support and lift us up. We use some of their collateral as well, photos. And we find also we get great engagement around that as well. Okay, nearly there, team. Look, actually, so again, it's really focused on us is trying to build our profile on LinkedIn. It's really critical for us. This is how we manage our community. This is how we engage. And I think I always give this context, is that for each post we do, if people engage with it, I was talking to our team the other day, and when we give something, in essence, we had, I think, 70 people interact with our post. If you can imagine, it's like having 70 people sitting in a town hall, and you're presenting them on a 10 or 15 minute snippet of something that's important to you and topical, and they're engaging. So these mechanisms, the way we engage and grow our community base, are really critical. So we're quite, even though it's quite a humble number, 1,900, we're really proud of that, because we started off with only 60 a couple of years ago.
Actually, 1,900 is a lot, to be honest. If you've got 1,900 on LinkedIn, it's quite a high number. Like, I know that you're going for a really high number, but it is harder to gain that as a business on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn actually pushes for personal pages more than business pages. So kudos to you, because it's actually a really good number.
We're nearly finished. I got one more slide. Cool. Hey, and one thing I talk about websites. Look, really interestingly for us is, as a business, the way we manage our community is about being targeted and focused, as you see from our marketing plan. Our website is very much a verification tool that clients will use once they've had an interaction for us. Given the fact that we're very much B2B, that's really important for us. I think there's just something to be aware of, is that you can spend a lot of time on SEO, you can spend a lot of time on getting these things right. But if you know where your customers hang out, I try to be more proactive. Hence the reason we don't use Facebook or Instagram and some of those other mechanisms, because our clients are conservative, bureaucrat, engineering type folk. They hang out on LinkedIn. That's their environment, and that's it. And that's all I've got. So I'm happy to take some questions.
I love, where's my video? I love the way you end a presentation. It's always like, and that's it. That's how you were at the thing at Auckland Chamber as well. And it was like, oh, he's finished. Such a crack up. But we do have honestly, I just want to firstly, I just want to say, you always blow me out of the water. Like, this is the second time I've seen you speak, and, it starts off and then you just go, whoa, here we go. We're diving in. And there was so much great insight in this session that you just did. I know that I'm going to need to rewatch it just to continually take in the nuggets, because there were so many. We have a question here that says, thanks, Warner, for sharing so many wonderful insights. I'm a procurement manager for a company building projects, which each one is unique. Our system is not very user-friendly for reporting procurement activities, supplier performance metrics. Is there any tool that you can recommend?
Oh, yeah. So we found Power BI to be really, really powerful, but it will be dependent on the APIs that are available. But in saying that, Power BI, if you haven't got an API that can connect to Power BI, what you can do is download that data and then trawl through that data. So yes, so I think the critical thing before you start looking at reporting is the really critical thing is, what is the key numbers that you're trying to understand? So I often see people rush into creating a reporting or a dashboard without actually out understanding really what is the important thing you need to know. So I think that's the challenge, is actually what do you need to know, what is important, and then rather than having a myriad of like data, is actually what are the 4 or 5 things that you really want to focus on that are critical. I think the trouble we have is we've got too much data and you can get hit with it. So for us, we've got cack loads of it, but actually we've kind of boiled our business down to 4 key numbers. One is NPS, one is utilization, gross profit per margin, and then account management. How do we manage the relationship? So we can effectively run our business off those 4 numbers, and it's either green or it's red. It's either good or bad, and then we can see live what we need to do about it at that point in time, and then get deep if we need to. So I think there's lots of tools, Power BI, and I can't remember, but there's a name of a tool that allows automation between different products as well, which our product manager. Pardon?
Is it a Zapier that connects?
Potentially, I'm not too sure. Yeah.
It's okay. I actually popped the Power BI link if you're looking for that that website to check out that platform. What I've done in the chat, and I've done it on all the platforms, is I've popped Power BI, Pipeline Drive, and Microsoft Teams, because you said you're moving to that, into the chat. And I will say, if it seems like you guys are very much a Microsoft-based business, and we have done 2 great sessions with the Microsoft team. Actually, we've done 3, but 2 with their tools. So if you want to be more of an expert on Excel like you are, you can watch. Andrea did a session on that. It was really cool. And she did a session on how to use Teams efficiently and all the cool things that you can do with Teams. And so we've done sessions on those. So if you're thinking about those tools, do check out those sessions. I don't have anything on Pipedrive or Power BI, so I'm excited about that. I'm going to have to put that on my wish list of organizations to reach out to and see if they can do some. I can
connect you some really good company does Power BI. The thing with every Microsoft product, I think it's really important. It allows you into a sense that you can do it yourself. And we dabbled with Power BI for 6 months, and then we realized we needed to get someone in, and we paid some money, and they turned this thing around. What you saw there within like a week and a half. And I think that's critical. Don't be afraid to get the experts in and pay some money. All these products give you the sense that you can do it yourself. You can go and watch something on LinkedIn and go, I can do that. But honestly, you just get the experts in.
And I guess it depends how big your team is as well. Some of our guys are only like a one-man band kind of situation. But I think what the valuable, like what I'm hearing there and what I've heard so many times is like, there's a time when you realize that you're not an expert in that. And the amount of time it's going to take you to figure it out you're going to save money, which is time in the long run. If you just get yourself the assistance you need by either outsourcing or getting some help, and there's real value in that. And that's when you stop thinking about your business as a hobby and you start thinking about it as a business. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, I think, like all these tools, if you get them set up correctly at the start, you just, and then again, bringing the expertise in, you can just eliminate pain. So for example, at the moment we use Workflow Max as job management system. We thought we knew how to do it, and actually we're bringing an expert in to review exactly how we can utilize that, because like most of these digital tools, you only use a small proportion of the functionality. So when we went through and started looking at how we can optimize is, again, how do we bring someone in to really see, because trouble with smart people is they think they know everything, and I'm an engineer, so I think I know everything, but that's not the case at all. So it's your blind window that what you don't see is where the opportunity is.
I mean, that's every app. I mean, I always talk about whenever Google comes on and stuff like that, I always say, like, they'll show me all these tools and it's like, just when I thought I needed a tool, it's already there. You know what I mean? It already exists. There's probably something out there. We actually did a session yesterday on streamlining processes and using Zapier to connect tools together. And so there's all of these great tools out there, and sometimes it's overwhelming. Don't you think, on like how to use them, but getting maybe a professional to have a look at that and say, look, I can see that these are the processes that you're trying to accomplish, and this is what you're using. This is how I would recommend changing that process to save you time and money. which can be cool. And there's just a follow-up comment that says, thank you so much. Would love to learn more about Power BI. Yeah, I'll connect with you about hopefully getting somebody on there from the organization. I'm sure they'd love to come on and show us a little bit about what they do and what it is. Because somebody was just talking to me. So this is a project management tool. Is it?
So the Power BI, what it is just a reporting tool.
Okay.
In essence, what it does is that it creates a mechanism for collecting data from different sources, whether it be an Excel spreadsheet or an API connection with a digital product like a Xero or a Workflow Max, whatever, or a pipeline drive. In fact, LinkedIn has an API connection for Power BI. So we also use that as a means of tracking our digital marketing. So all Power BI does is take that data, creates dashboards that allow you to look at the key metrics. But again, I keep emphasizing the importance of making sure you get you're really clear on the numbers you want to measure. That's really critical to this, and spending some time doing that. And then, in a weird way, if you can get your thinking right and you're using an Excel spreadsheet and it's working for you, then making an iteration to jump into Power BI. I tend to find some people get really kind of caught up and excited about the technology, and then they create something without it being any real business value for you.
Yeah, I think that's what I love about what you talk. You're you're like a real, you're so focused on what you're trying to accomplish. I love that zeroing in that you do. You're not all over the place. You're like, right, these are our goals. This is what we're going to do. This is our value. It's so structured. I don't think like that. And I love listening to people talk who are just in that way, because that's how you are actually effective and not just busy,
Yeah, so. Maybe you should talk to my wife. I probably sound a lot better than I really am.
You might have done this a few times. Look, we don't have any more questions on any of the platforms right now, and I think that's because we're all just going, woo, what, this was crazy. I'm so glad to be in this session, which I didn't expect at all. See, I think that, sometimes, you've just got a LinkedIn request as well. Build the network. Comment here from Warren, great presentation. Warren, I'm not from construction industry, but from the uniforms industry. I was wanting to tender for government business and schools for their uniforms. Where to start for this?
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, really good question. I think, look, we do a lot of work with organizations trying to pitch and win government contracts. And I think the first thing is, and the most important thing is that how do you build a relationship with that client organization well before the tender comes to market? So we're talking about pitching to traditionally quite a conservative group of people, and they rely heavily on their relationships to make decisions. So even though a tender process does feel objective, in a lot of cases, they will look at the people within that organization and their ability to procure it, and they will carry bias into that. So being very honest about that. So I think the trick is to understand who's putting those contracts to market, and then trying to build a relationship with those people before the tender comes to market. The other thing to realize is that there's a whole world of opportunity that sits outside the tendered work. So there's a whole lot of stuff that happens that is negotiated. It's just sole source or direct source. So tendering is one of many ways to engage with government agencies. Some government agencies have very generous sole source delegations, can sole source up to things like $10 million, which is quite a lot of money. So for even most small businesses, when we work with them, we try and really work with them to get to a point that they can negotiate direct with a government agency. And it's about demonstrating value, having the levels of compliance, and having the trust of that organization to do that.
Right. And so would you recommend building that trust also through authority, like the way that you guys have done it with your website and with the way that you've kind of promoted yourself on different networks, to building that content and that kind of recognition within the community so that people go, yep, I've heard of this guy, I've heard of them.
Yeah, a little bit, but I in the world we live in, which is very much B2B and with a very conservative audience, which is what a government agency is that the important thing is to build that personal relationship, and you use the digital back to verify the messaging you create once you've had a personal interaction. So what we'll find is we might go and have an interaction with a client, we might share some of the thinking we're thinking about, and then we'll come back and look at our website or our LinkedIn post to get some verification of what they're doing, get some comfort around it. we don't generally find that that some of the digital stuff we do is a lead generator per se. We have to beat the street, and I think that's really critical. If you're wanting to do work with government, you need to understand who's making that decision. The other thing that's really important pitching for government work is it's not about a faceless entity organization. It's real people making decisions within those organizations. So again, how do you build that level of trust? How do you give them the confidence you can deliver? Our bureaucrats are under tremendous pressure. They're under the spotlight the whole time. They're in the media. They get hauled over the coals if things go wrong. So they really want to have confidence in the supply chain, and you're not going to ever do that through a document or through a digital way. You've got to have to show them and demonstrate that trust.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great advice. Thank you so much. I hope that answered your question, Warren, and thanks for dropping that in. Yeah, thanks. Cool. I'll just double check that there aren't questions, because sometimes people are typing on other platforms, and so just want to make sure I haven't lost anybody. So I apologize. I do have to do it manually. I've tried to sort that out, but it doesn't work. Okay. All right. Now I do think we have finished for the day, but I just want to reiterate that we're really grateful that you took the time to come
no problem at all
on today. And yeah, I'm looking forward to pushing this out on my LinkedIn channel as well, because it was such a great session. I think that what I like about this, even though you're in that certain realm, and this is what Sarah was saying, it was, even though I'm not necessarily in that industry, or, somebody might not be in that industry that you are in, the value, what you're talking about that underpins your business and all of that foundational stuff is applicable to any business. And that's what I like about what you talk about. And that's why I thought it would be such great value, and you've delivered. So have a wonderful day. Enjoy the rest of your day. Everyone one more question. For contracts about terms and conditions, is there any course you can recommend?
Goodness me. It varies depending on the type of industry. So for example, in construction, there's a set of standard contract documents.
I'm trying to look at what her industry was. It was a procurement manager for a company building projects.
Okay, so actually, anyone who's listening in, actually, just ping me on LinkedIn. Happy to have a conversation. Happy to help. Happy to share. One of our approaches is that how do we open source and share stuff? So, if a quick conversation gets you going quickly, then we're happy to share our experiences.
Oh.
So just ping me on LinkedIn, and we'll just connect, have a quick Zoom call or chat on the phone. Yeah, don't underestimate the power of the telephone.
That's so amazing. Thank you so much. Okay, that's great.
Oh, we're look for tenders. Is there a site? Yep, there is. There's GETS, which is the Government Electronic Tender Service.
I'll just pull that up. GETS.
Yeah, but what I would say with this is that, as I talked before, is that those opportunities that come to market, the client in their own mind has a sense of those organizations that could deliver that contract. Mm-hmm. So unless you come packed with something that's amazing and blows them out of the water, if you're a new entrant, then you'll probably struggle to do that. But again, having the relationship with the buying organization well and truly before the opportunity comes to market is critical. Mm-hmm. And most publicly available, most public entities have a list of the contracts that may come to market and details of the budgets around what they're going to spend. So if you look at, for example, a council's annual plan, it will detail what is coming to market. So maybe that's a discussion for another day.
Yeah, indeed. Well, yeah, let's look at that. That'd be really great.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks. You're welcome. You're welcome, Warren. Okay. Have a great day, everyone. It's been a pleasure, and we'll see you next time. Ka kite.
Ka kite no.